Alright, so it's connected. I guess I'm already set up. As you can see, I have all my stuff out. I'll explain what everything is here in a split second. So I was trying to decide what size to work on. I've got here 9 by 12, and then I've got I think this is 15 by, what's this, 12? 16 by 20. 16 by 20 or 9 by 12. I couldn't decide what size to go with. But I think I'm going to go with the smaller size. It's kind of late at night for everyone. I had a long sleep today. I'm a night walker right now with my sleep schedule, so for me this feels like late afternoon, early evening. So it's a weird schedule, but here I am. And I've brought a couple of new things to show you guys. This is my big brush. This is a big, springy, synthetic brush that I like to use for bigger pieces. It's really washy. You can cover a big area fast. It holds a lot of liquid. Because it's synthetic, it's got a kind of good gestural, rough feeling to it. I'm just using it now to show you kind of what it's doing. And again, I'm getting some areas of the paper wet because those areas will make it be soft detail in those spots, and it kind of gives an underpainting for us to start working from. That's the big brush. And I'll say again, every brush, even a synthetic brush, just like hair or a wig, use hair products. Don't use really expensive brush cleaners and brush pointers and things that are at the art store for brushes, because what you get is you get frayed edges. You want to treat your brushes the way you would treat hair. Use really good conditioner. Use really cheap conditioner is even better than the stuff you buy at the art store. A little bit of shampoo in some water, a shampoo bar, something like that, something that's made for hair. And on the synthetic ones, you want to do the same thing, even to the down to the conditioner. Use silicone-based conditioner on the synthetic brushes. It's really good for them. Just like it would be if you had a wig and you were trying to clean or treat a wig. So that's brushes. I'm going back to my favorite brushes. These are squirrel hair. And I think they're Neptune. They're kind of expensive. One of mine is 4 years old, and the other one's a few years old, 2 or 3 years old. These are really good short-handled brushes, and since I'm working so small, I don't need that big gestural kind of brush. I need this smaller brush. I'm just emphasizing my spaces there. I'm going to work with a really limited palette tonight, very subdued color. I'm going to work with a sepia, burnt umber, cobalt, black, gamboge, and white. I do have some red, but I don't know if I'm going to get into that. And I'm going to start with this sienna sort of color. And I'm just going to kind of lay in a pattern of textural sort of gestures into the areas that I've already made wet, so that I've got just kind of a underlying tone in some areas. And now I'm paying attention a little bit to composition at this point. It's not foremost in my mind because, again, this is the sort of preparation stage for this paper, but I'm noticing I'm very heavy down here. It's a lot darker down here. There's more pigment on the paper. down here. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to do just a few really strong sort of strokes, but not a lot of them. I'm not going to let it be as diluted. So we've got an area with a lot of darkness and a lot of weight, and then an area that's lighter with bigger shapes, but with a few that draw your eye. So we've got some balance between the two ends of this surface right now. And with composition, one of the things that I always like to do is keep in mind that you can go very dynamic. You can try to make the viewer's eye move through the whole piece, never settling in one spot, or you can give them a restful place and draw their eye to it and try to keep them in it. The constant motion makes for paintings that feel agitated, and the restful place, a painting that has a place that's very static, everything else leads to that static place, will actually calm someone. So when you see a landscape, lots of chaotic trees, and then in the center there's sort of a, like a horizontal blue horizon with water or whatever, that motion, that chaotic motion, draws your eye to that center part and gives you a restful, calm feeling. It's a calm landscape, because where your eye sits is a place that's very peaceful. Whereas paintings that are full of motion, you often see landscapes that are like wind-whipped trees or storm clouds, and there's, diagonals and lightning bolts, and there's no place in it where the composition just stops. Everything is pointing you to something else, and it makes you feel agitated, the way a thunderstorm would, or a high wind, or a whipping sea. With composition, your intention, your feeling that you want the painting to have, really determines your direction. Even especially in an abstract piece, because when you're working with abstraction, all you have is your intention and shapes. That's all you have. So like Mondrian, some of his works are just very static squares, and your eye will rest on them. Your eye will be drawn around to a spot where it rests, just like those landscapes. Other of his pieces are very chaotic, and there is no spot where lines become horizontal and there is an enclosed area. Everything is leading you to look at something else. So even with just squares of color and black lines, he was able to do both very complex, chaotic, dynamic compositions and very calming ones. Let's see here. Is this dry? That's a little bit dry. So I'm going to do my usual sort of critical method, where I'm going to make a mess, and I'm going to find the painting in it. I'm going to see what we're painting tonight. I have to find my trusty, dirty, crusty paint rag. Soak some of that up. Not a lot of water in this here, because I want this rag to actually pick up paint right out of the paper and off the paper. And then we'll see what we're looking at here. So, the fun part. What do I see in this? What do you see in this? I don't know if anybody's in this yet. Usually what I'm looking for is a really simple set of shapes. Two eyes, mouth, a jawline. That's enough to make a face. Our mind will see a face even if there isn't one in a lot of things. It's called pareidolia. And it's our brain's response to abstraction, to random patterns. We want to see faces in everything, and we'll look for them and try to find them. And this is just how I sort of make something random enough that I can find something in it. I want a little bit of tippy-tappy mess to happen too. That's a little more like it. I was trying to figure out how I could get more people interested in watching these. I mean, I'm not Bob Ross. I'm not teaching you really to paint. I'm not inspirational viewing or anything. I'm kind of a doomer. But I was having a conversation earlier about what I should be talking about while I do these paintings, what I would talk about that would interest people. The only history I know very well is medical history, the history of crime, true crime sort of stuff. So history's kind of out of it, because that's really, I mean, how much more doom and gloom do we need every day right now? I don't assume you're watching this to hear scary things or bad things, really. I was thinking about talking about resilience, personal resilience or something, while I paint, but honestly, I'm not a therapist or anything, so if I'm talking about that stuff, I'm kind of talking out my ass. So I didn't want to do that. And then one of the suggestions I was given was to talk about community and talk to people about community, and I thought, well, that's great. You know, I'm a capital S socialist and all that, and I could, talk about, community defense or something like that. But the more I thought about it, and this was brought up too, was, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so it's very difficult to have community right now for a lot of people. They're not seeing people, they're not seeing faces out in the world in their day-to-day life as much as they were. And it's really hard. You can't gather a big group and try to accomplish something. The protests and some other stuff like that, obviously being exceptions because just the massive nature of them. But that's it's a community action, but it's on such a grand scale that the kind of community that people need to be really resilient is really, it's lacking right now. Okay, so I see a face. I'm going to pick it out here. So yeah, person-to-person community is really lacking right now. A lot of people don't have access to the people and places they had before. And if they do, if you're going to work and you're an essential worker and all that sort of thing, you're not going out to parties as much. You're not having as much contact with your friends and loved ones as you maybe are accustomed to, and your day-to-day contacts with other people are lessened. Closeness is missing. And so, how do you have community when you can't be with a huge group of people? Can't be with, I've got some people here with me. Hi, it's a community. And it's that simple. The internet, all these apps, your phone, your square phone that you carry around, the thing that cell phone bad, book good, boomer comics make fun of. All the people I know are inside this thing. Everybody I know is inside here. But do I need to go to their house? Not necessarily. I mean, it's nice, but video chat and all those kinds of things, if you're really extroverted, your community is still there. They're just not physically there. And then the question becomes, what part of, what is it about being around people that you really value? Is it their physical body that matters? Like, are you only able to, feel that you've connected with someone because their body is there? Or is it who they are? Is it their mind, their words, that kind of thing? Because if it's not just, you know, their meat shell that matters, there's no reason for you to lose community and lose contact with people. There's no reason for you to have that kind of disconnect, I guess. It's, I don't like that guy. I don't like him. There's no reason for it. Your contact with people can be the same, really, as it ever was, except you're not physically all in the same place. And I know this is kind of an old concept. I'm not saying anything original here. Hell, Second Life, and you know, these big sort of digital world projects and games and things were built around this concept, and people have been talking about, you know, escape pods from reality and that kind of thing for a long time. But instead of an escape pod, it's a connection. It's a way to connect with people. I know a lot of people aren't technologically savvy, and there's accessibility issues for a lot of people. I try to caption things. I have somebody working on captioning now. My friend Mary's going to work on captioning for me, because, like, if you're deaf, this is really hard. I'm looking down a lot, and you can't read my lips when I'm looking down. I don't know sign language, and I'm obviously working, so I can't be, you know, signing. If you're blind, you're listening to my voice, but you don't know what I'm making. You can't see what's happening. So the internet is limited in some ways, but digital contact is limited in a lot of ways. But the connection can still be there. It can still be there. I want 3 figures in this. I want there to be 3, I think. I don't know. These people look kind of sad. They look very depressed. I don't want them to be depressed. I don't want to paint depressed people's faces. With abstract stuff, and even, you know, something like this that's more expressionist, the beauties of it is that there's no being stuck. If you don't like what you've done, change it. Give it up and try a different thing. I know you've seen me do this with other paintings. If you've watched any of my live streams, you've seen me do a lot of painting over and things like this, where I didn't like what I was doing, and I decided, you know, it had to go, and I get in there and I sort of scrub it away, or I change it. It's just part of the process. Oh, now see, this texture, this background pattern, I like this. And I feel like there's things in this, there's shapes in this that kind of are important. So I'm going to pull a few of those out, just with a little bit of white. I feel like it's like a gray. It's like a grayish white. It's got a little bit of sienna and umber blended into it. I'm just kind of scrubbing out the general shape that I want on this canvas. It's paper. This is paper. This is watercolor paper. I'm not working on a canvas. This is watercolors. One thing about working with watercolors, a lot of artists do leave white page blank showing. I'm not a fan of that so much. I like to cover the surface. I like the surface to be completely covered. So once I get here to this point, oh, you know what I didn't do? Look at this, I made a mistake. I never taped off my edges. Let's make the edges funky. Because I'm about to go in and put tape on them. So let's screw them up a little bit. I'm just using some water and some of the dirty palette, and I'm smudging along the edges here. I just kind of want it to look dingy underneath where I'm going to put this paint. There we go. That's nice. It looks like dirt. I like the blue painter's tape the best. Oh, it comes off really easily. It's a blessing and a curse. It's still a little damp. I might have to let it dry a little before I can do this. Yeah, I think I have to let it dry for a few minutes. I know you guys just really came here to watch paint dry and listen to me talk, right? But, you know, sometimes things aren't perfect. Closer to the edge, a little closer. I'm not aiming for perfection with these edges, obviously. I forgot to even make them. But I do want to block out the next layer of paint from getting underneath there. They can be a little indistinct. It's going to be fine. Even if they're a little crooked, that's fine. Because this is a watercolor, so when it gets finished and matted and framed, this part may be underneath a matte, the very edge may be underneath a matte anyway. So people will not really see it so much. It's more for my satisfaction, I guess, this part. So that when I'm finished, I can peel this off and immediately get a feeling for how it looks inside its frame. And the blue around the edge gives me a compositional guide to sort of subconsciously a containment. And I think part of the problem I was having just now is that I had no containment to what I was doing. So I was sort of planning things as if I was working on a bigger surface, a bigger piece of paper or whatever, because I wasn't paying attention to my edges. And I talked about this last time, where you don't want anything pointing into a corner, like that, like at an angle where it's directing your eye out, because it won't bring your eye in. If it's pointing at that corner, it'll take your eye out of the painting. So you don't want anything that does that. I don't see anything here that does that, no tangent lines. You also don't want the edges of two shapes to be touching. You kind of want them to be distinct from each other, where they will either overlap or not touch or come close to each other. And that way you get separation between the two. If they're touching, they're going to look like two parts of the same thing. You don't want to do that. I'm going to go back and forth here with the white, the umber. I'm going to kind of make these shapes happen. I'm just going to go through and sort of smash those into the paper. It's pretty thick paper. This is 300 paper. Got cut off. It's 140-pound paper. It's not the thickest. I used 300 weight paper. Some that's like almost like, you know, cardstock, or not cardstock, but like board thickness. But this is a good weight to work on. This is a good, comfortable weight to work with. It's thick enough that it won't warp, and it's thin enough to be a little bit pliable, so you can press it and you can kind of mess with it, and it's not as expensive. So I like this. I like this. I want more definition here, I think. Yeah. I don't want this to be a cloud. I'm trying really hard not to make this into a cloud. I've done a lot of landscape painting, so it's kind of hard not to. But I want this lower edge really defined, I think, with this shape. There we go. Maybe it looks like a little bit like a cloud, but it's not. I promise it's not a cloud. This one down here, I think I want the top edge really defined. Extra paint. And just squeeze it off there with my fingers. It's watercolor. As long as I'm not eating it, it's pretty safe. You can get it on your fingers and stuff. I do have some vintage and historical paints that I would not do that with. I have some blues and greens. I even have some lead white that I wouldn't want to smear on my fingers like that. But these are modern paints, so they're safe enough. Water-soluble modern paints are safe enough to get on your fingers and your skin. If you're working with oil, it's a different story, but with these, it's fine. There we go. There's a good definition for that part. And see, I'm just getting that paint up to where I want the shape, and then I'm just scrubbing away from it. And it gives me a nice edge right there. And the transition, the blend is uneven, but I think a good one. And I'm working really dry. I'm working like very dry brush sort of feeling to this one. Whereas, you know, the last few times I've painted, I've gone with a very sort of sopping yuck all over. Now I'm at a point, I'm at a stopping point for a second because some of those areas are damp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make very dark, sort of dullish blue, and then I'm going to lighten it up with some water. I've got a lot of cobalt pigment right there, and I just took a little bit into my umber, and you'll see, it's like it's going to be like a faint gray when it dries. And it's got a bluish sort of, bluish sort of undertone to it. So it's a very cool gray. And what I'm doing with this is like I said, I don't want the white of the paper to show through. So I'm just going where I can see that, and I'm toning it with this kind of smeary blue coolness. There we go. Now, for the composition's sake, I think I want there to be a tension between this side of the paper and this side of the paper. These two corners are opposing each other. They're kind of fighting each other. So I think I want this down here to be very cold, and that up there will be very warm. So I'm going to get in here, and here's my cobalt. This is just straight cobalt. Like I explained before, I don't use a lot of, I don't use ultramarine or aquamarine. I don't like the ultramarine based, French ultramarine based blues. They sort of take over the entire canvas once you've got them on there. It's like the whole painting is that tone. They're very visually overwhelming. This cobalt is a little bit less. It's a very good blue. I mean, it's got a lot of strength to it. You can see right there, I've got a little bit of it almost pure right there on the canvas. It's not dull, but it's not overwhelming. It doesn't battle the other colors and overtake them when it comes to the impact on the canvas itself, on the entire sheet. So here's our cool part. I'm going to get a little bit of this white with this. I'm going to kind of pick out the areas where I want it to kind of connect down into this, or maybe up into this. I don't know if this is the top or bottom of this canvas yet. I have to look at the composition when it's finished and get a feeling for what's happened. But that's a cool area. Very cold tones. Down here, I think I'm going to go warm. I'm going to leave all this mess in here, this blue and burnt umber, and I think I'm going to get a little bit of rose. This is rose madder. It's a modern rose madder, so it's not, it won't have that, the strength of maybe a vintage paint. The vintage paints of that color, they're kind of, I can't remember why they're hard to get. Either the plant is extinct or they're dangerous, one or the other. It's always one or the other of those things. In this case, I'm using the modern paint. A lot of the antique paints and vintage paints I have, I bought when I had a lot of spare income, because they can get really expensive. The lead white that I've got Viridian and a few other colors that are sort of really dangerous, mostly in oils. I have those in oils. You wear gloves when you work with them. They're not, they're the kind of thing that, killed Van Gogh or whatever sort of thing you would hear about, artists poisoning themselves, touching their brushes or something. So this is too much. This is like pink hell down here. I don't like it. But I like the warmth of it. So I'm going to leave some. I'm just going to get rid of the more extreme spots. And I'm going to come back in with a wash that has that color in it, mixed with a little bit of the sepia. So now I've toned down the brightness a whole lot, actually. Get it up into that whites area, that edge. Warm it up a little bit. Is this a rainbow? Am I making a doomer rainbow? I think I'm making. Hey Heather, I think I'm making a doomer rainbow. Look at this. This is a doomer rainbow. What am I doing here? No, this has to stop. Maybe I don't know. Oh, this is not where I wanted to go with this, but we can't always predict what's going to happen, I guess. This is a little bit better. I've got my yellow happening down here. We're not in rainbow land anymore. I'm very sorry to anyone who was excited when I said the word rainbow, but it's not happening. I almost want this to be like something's being contained in here. And you notice I keep using this muddy, kind of dirty little pan over and over again. It's because I really like the subdued tones of that color, where it doesn't have any full saturation in it. I'm even adding a little bit of black to it now. See that? I want this area dark, dark, dark. And of course it's watercolor. It will not dry that dark. It's just almost like glazing, like laying another layer of darkness, another layer on top of what's underneath it, with just some water and a little bit of that muddy kind of dark, messed up pan full of smudge and dirt. I'm going to let this have some brush strokes. We aren't having a lot of those, so we'll leave some right there. And I'm going to go into this. I want that sort of feeling that I just was getting with the squares. It almost feels like a pattern, a texture is inside there. Got some kind of weird rhythm in my head. It doesn't match up to what I'm doing. Make it very dark. What is that in there? That's modern art. It's the modern art scene. Saw somebody talking today online about, in my digital community, talking about, you know, a billionaire wants to get a tax break, so he pays an artist $10 grand to staple a banana to the wall. And then he donates it, he has it appraised by one of his friends at, $100 million, and then he donates it to a museum and he gets a $100 million tax write-off, and that's how modern art works. And that may be how some modern artists work, I guess. That might be like a thing that some conceptual artists do on their way down from the peak of their career or something, or if they're a flash in the pan, they want to make a quick buck before they delegitimize themselves or something. But modern artists, modern art, abstract art, you don't have to be highly educated or in the high class art world to understand it. A really accessible modern artist would be somebody, what's his name? Who broke the Ming era vase. He was protesting conditions in his country, and he destroyed a historical art object to do that. Now, that historical art object represented an empire, and an empire which in the modern era is still pretty much exists in a strange way, but the oppression of it and the oppression of free exchange of ideas was something that he was trying to discuss with that. And it's a performance art piece. He breaks a vase. Literally, that's the entire piece of art. It's not like the banana stapled to the wall where the whole point is, let's see if people believe this is art. Duchamp already did that. It's derivative to do that now. It's the 21st century. You can't do that anymore. It was done. It was done 100 years ago and better. Spray on rocks. Yeah, it does feel kind of oceany. It feels like the rocks, you know, like basalt sort of columns, and then there's, you know, some tide pool stuff going on here with some sea foam, and then over there maybe is a darker sky or something, but or vice versa. That's the spray. But yeah, you don't have to be a brainiac to like or understand modern art. You can look at it until you see something that makes you have a feeling or a thought, and that can be your entryway to modern. For me, it's Cy Toomley. Cy Toomley, if you don't know who he is, he does these really bizarre, giant, like room-sized things, and they're basically almost like like he imitates ballpoint pen or, you know, felt tip pen on paper, the size of the wall of a huge room, and it's something like a grocery list, and that's the art piece. And there's something about that. Looking at them that I really like. It's very satisfying to me. They're very scribbly and big and exciting to look at. And the subject matter is so boring and everyday. I don't know, it's great stuff. So this feels very doom, unpleasantness over here. I don't know what this piece is doing. I don't know where this piece is going. I don't know what it is doing. But this, I think, is important, and getting back in with a little blue over there, I think, will be kind of important. We've got a little red right there. Balance. A little balance. So, what was I talking about earlier? I don't even remember. Digital community. Digital community builds resilience. Communities build resilience. So if you're an extrovert and you really need that community, be online. Be with people online. You know, don't go argue on Facebook. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things like host a Zoom to drink coffee with your friend. Go look for people that you know who go directly to your friends' pages. See what they've been posting on any social media, and look for something personal, not something political, because we are all already fighting those battles all the time. I'm talking about community right now, building resilience in yourself, so that no matter what hard times come or bad things are happening, politically or in the news, you have resilience. So if you're an introvert, you're totally fine. You're like me, you're totally fine. You know, you're struggling to even do stuff like this where you have to barely interact with people. Oh, the armchair, yes. The armchair made of cement. Stuff like that is just, people will put it down. People will say, you know, I don't understand it, it's modern art, and it's stupid or whatever, it's meaningless. What does that even mean? But it's freaking cool. It doesn't have to have an accessible meaning to be a really good piece of modern art. I mean, meaning is all that a lot of modern art has, because it's not objective. It doesn't have a subject in it. There's not subjective art. There's nothing concrete in it, but there's something about some of that stuff that's just amazing. And I've reached a point with this where I think I'm actually done with this painting. It was a quick painting. I didn't have much interesting... It made you say, wow. Thank you. I didn't have much to say during this. I think this was my painting for Australia because nobody else is awake right now. It's like early evening in my mind right now because of my sleep schedule. And I know for you guys it's daytime, so lucky you. I don't know which way this goes. I'm seeing it in reverse. That actually helps. Actually, I think I gotta take the tape off. That's how I'll find out. Yeah, so digital community. If you can't see people in real life and you're an extrovert and all this isn't okay with you, you know, obviously contact people online and be in touch with people online. And don't be afraid to tell people that you're lonely. Tell people that you're lonely. Say, I'm lonely. I need to see people. I need to talk to someone. That's what your friends are for. That's what people are for. That are your friends. We're there, even if people don't have a lot of time or energy, or if they're introverts like me and they say, I don't really talk on the phone, I don't really Zoom. I'll have a conversation with someone, even if I don't really talk on the phone and I don't really Zoom. I'll still chit chat with a friend. I understand. It was hard for me when everybody was around all the time. And I know it can be hard for introverts right now, or extroverts right now, when nobody's around. Needs more smudging, but I think it goes this way. Needs a little smudge. Right there. Like that. Just break it up a little bit. There we go. Yeah, there's our restful place. There's the place in the piece that's going to draw your eyes in, and it's totally, it's literally just smudgy. It's not, there's nothing in there that's visually attractive or that leads you. It's just there for to be a place for your eye to rest. Because I forgot to put the tape around it, I'll show you a trick. Yeah, I think the orange side down. I'm going to do a little trick here. Because this will end up matted, this outside edge is really only for me, judging my own work. Any mat that goes inside a frame will cover this, hopefully, unless, whoever the buyer is decides they like it for some reason. But then, by then, it doesn't matter. It's to me at all. It's not my art anymore when somebody else buys it and has it, and then it belongs to them. But right now it's mine, and I want to see these crisp edges. So I've just got, real liquid black here. A real liquid black and a bit of this sepia. And I'm just making myself an edge. I'm putting it inside a square for my own viewing pleasure. Like that. I don't really care if it's perfect. I just want it to be, relatively straight. Actually, I don't think it goes in neither one of them is down. It goes like this. It's a horizontal piece. It goes like this. This is some kind of sunset or magma or blood splatter, I don't know. And then this is some kind of foam on the rocks or something. I don't really think it is any of those things. Obviously it's an abstract, so it isn't those things, but it looks like those things. I'll get out my little baby brush. And sign it. So, if you think of things you want me to chat about, oh yeah, tell me what Toby thinks. Oh, actually, I'll hold it closer. There we go. If you guys think of things that you'd like me to talk about next time, or that you'd like me to do techniques or things I should explain or talk over or discuss, let me know. I keep trying to stream to Twitch and failing. It's two kinds of people at war, water versus fire. Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. Tell him it's hot and cold. It's not water and fire. It's hot and cold. Yeah, if you think of anything you want me to talk about next time, leave me a comment. This will go up on my feed, and it'll probably be on YouTube. I'll try to save it and put it on YouTube. I've got my shiv. I'm going to peel this off of the block. Dangerously, as always. As always. Cut towards your own neck when you do this. Every time. Aim at your other hand, aim at your neck. Make sure your shiv is really sharp. You do need one of these. Every artist on earth needs to have one of these. I don't even know what this thing is, technically. I mean, I bought this for $1 at a flea market a long time ago. I think it's some kind of... I think it's like a railroad tie that somebody flattened into it, literally a shiv. But it is the most useful tool I've ever owned. I use it for framing, I use it for trimming paper, I use it to open things, I use it to separate pages from blocks. I use it for everything. So get yourself a shiv. Get yourself hair products for your brushes, not art products. Hair products, they are hair. Treat them like hair. And again, these little palettes, it's watercolor. It can dry out and I'll be able to use it again. With watercolor, there's no waste. Just get it wet next time. Let the water soak into it for a few minutes, and you can use that paint all over again right out of the palette. Thanks, Heather. I'm going to show you up close, and then I'm going to end the stream. This is tonight's painting. All right. I'll see you guys next time.